All right, now we are going to do the RAD 9 movies that made me. All right, so let me go over to here. Yeah, 9 RAD movies that made me. Tag a little background on this tag. And guys, this is the first time I've done a tag in probably, it might be like 7 years. Back in the day, and they still do them, of course, but I just remember back when I first started doing YouTube, there were a lot of tags going around and everybody was getting involved in them. And it just seemed like there was like a lull there where nobody was doing tags, or at least I don't remember people doing tags as much. Tags used to be really, really popular. And I think, or maybe it's just a community thing. Like in the horror community, I haven't seen too many tags. And I think this was like maybe in the vinyl community or something like that, or I don't know. But this particular tag here is an irresistible idea. I know that, to give them credit, there's a podcast called the 9 RAD podcast or something. Actually, I wrote it down right here. Hold on, let me see. I want to give proper credit. But I found out about this. I know Beth S. did one. I know David Diggs, he did one. And there's been quite a few others that have done this tag. It is Rad Pack Pod. So it's the Rad Pack Podcast. Okay? But what is the 9 RAD movies that made me? All right, what it is, it's not a top 10 list of movies. It's not. What it is it's kind of like your history in movies. Kind of like a checkpoint in like the memories of your life, the movies of your life, right? Like say, just to give you an example, okay? What is the first movie you saw in the theater? That could be a selection on here. Maybe that experience is something that's really, really important to you. But this could be like a movie that you've only seen once, but it's still, there's a memory there, So there's really no rules. You can put whatever you want. You could make this your favorite movies of all time, but you could really get creative and just start thinking back to like memories, movie memories that you had that kind of shaped you. So these are the movies that kind of shaped me. Now, I've done, I was going through my list of movies. I thought, I got to add this one. I got to add this one. Just because I'm thinking back to my past and when I was a kid and just all these memories that I had. I came up with freaking 20 movies, maybe 21. Okay. And I can't leave any of them out. I can't leave it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you, I think 11 of them today. And then we'll continue this with the next DD Live. I'll do the rest of them, okay? Because I want to do both lists. They all have to be mentioned. Also, this is not a ranking, all right? This is, when I get to number 1, it's not like the best movie on this list, okay? It's just memories, movie memories. So this is not a ranking. It's just going to be 11 movies, all right? So anyway, we can get started right now because the movie's up there. Better Off Dead. Better Off Dead. Better Off Dead is really important to me because I used to watch it on HBO. And I think some of these movies you're going to hear HBO because I used to watch HBO a lot back in the 80s when I was a kid. But Better Off Dead was, I think, one of the few comedies that really jumped out at me because it was a PG. I think it was either PG or PG-13. Did PG-13 even exist at the time? But there was just something unique about this movie that was different than other comedies for me. There was like a tongue-in-cheek nature, but the origin of it was, and I found this out years and years later, was that the writer of this movie, Savage Steve Holland, he was going through depression. He had a breakup, and he was literally suicidal. And it was one of those situations where out of that pain and grief, he wrote this really funny movie. And in the movie, Lane Meyer, played by John Cusack, he literally wants to kill himself, But it's one of those movies that it feels fully like a comedy throughout. You don't really almost, like, it's like you can't even see the darkness in the movie, even though it's right there. But to give you an example, like there's a scene where he tries to hang himself, and then he talks himself out of it. And then his mother pushes the door open, and his body falls anyway. And so he's literally sitting there hanging, and his mother's holding the door open and vacuuming with the other hand, you know? So she can't hear him because she's vacuuming. And there's moments like this throughout the movie, but also the idea of the movie is he broke up with this girl, Beth, and it just sends him into this spiral. But then he meets this other girl, Monique, who is a foreign exchange student. And it's just a really a feel-good comedy that still to this day has some of the most unique. It's just a very unique style of comedy. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. You got freaking the guy who played Booger. I always call him Booger, but he's just, I've never seen this type of humor when you got these two characters dancing with each other, and one of them's just a complete dickwad. He's just a bully. But I'll just call him Booger. Booger, he doesn't get the joke. The bully's making fun of him, but because he doesn't get it, it's he starts laughing, and it breaks the tension in the moment, and it's just a really funny scene. But this whole movie, it's really funny, but also it's just a feel-good movie, And I think the 80s were just full of these type movies, these feel-good comedies, And I don't think we'll ever have another decade with comedies like the 80s. Most of them had a certain vibe. So, again, no ranking, just giving you... These are memories pretty much of mine, okay? Number 2 is going to be Friday the 13th, Part 3. Okay, is this my favorite Friday movie? No, it's not. It's a really good one. I like this movie, but this is one of those moments in my life that scared the living shit out of me. And it's that scene. Because I was 10 years old, and I'm just sitting, I'm having a sleepover with my cousin at my house, and we're on one of those sofa hide-a-beds, and I can't remember, I think we either watched it on VHS, or I think it might have been on HBO, but I was so deathly afraid of not just this movie, but just the franchise in general, because I used to see these TV spots of Friday the 13th for parts 1 and 2. And at the time, I was probably 8 years old. So when this movie came out, I was around 10. But I just remember watching those little TV spots. They would come on. And I think Friday the 13th, those early movies have some of the greatest TV spots ever. They literally scared the living crap. And it was so weird for me. The first Friday movie, I remember when I first watched that one. This is how screwed up your mind can be when you're a child. When there's a big showdown between Pamela Voorhees and Alice at the end. And I think one of them... I think Pamela Voorhees finds some blood in this closet. And I thought the blood was black. It's you kind of form your own story, what this could be about. And I guess I tied black blood with evil. I don't know. I was freaking 10 years old. So Friday always scared the living crap out of me. And then Friday Part 3, I think it was debuting on HBO or something like that. And I just remember having my hands over my eyes for the entire movie. I couldn't deal with it. Every time he would kill somebody, it was just torture for me. And the scene that I remember opening my eyes was when he squeezed this guy's head and that eyeball just pops out at the screen. And it just freaking... I started screaming, ran out of the room. I don't think I finished Friday Part 3, but that memory still to this day has always stayed with me. And it is one of my first real scares. I cheated on this next one. I put a TV show on here, and maybe that's why I gave it 11 on this list. But, man, The Incredible Hulk, the TV show, just such a big part of my life when I was a child. I used to watch this with my dad. It used to come on Friday night after Dukes of Hazzard. And we would watch Dukes of Hazzard, but for me, I couldn't wait to watch The Incredible Hulk. And I think I started watching it when the pilot episode 78. So 78, I was 5 years old, and that pilot episode really stayed with me because it wasn't so comic booky. They played it straight. And I know Bill Bixby, even behind the scenes, told Kenneth Johnson, hey, if I'm doing this, I don't want this to feel like a comic book. I want to play this very serious. This is a guy with a curse, with an affliction. And each episode, he's trying to cure that affliction. He's trying to get rid of it. Specifically, I guess I would put the first episode, the pilot episode, which was a movie. It was a made-for-TV movie. But it showed how he became the Hulk. And there were moments like the beginning of the episode where he was in a car accident with his fiance. Or I think she was his wife. But his wife dies, and it opens up with like this montage of all these memories that he had with her, you know. And later in the movie, you know, him and his partner, they're trying to get him to become the Hulk, and they're unsuccessful. He's getting angry. He's trying to force himself to become the Hulk, but he gives up. And then he just goes to sleep. And then all those memories of losing his wife, they start fluttering through his head. And then that's what makes him become the Hulk. And it's just moments like that that always stayed with me about this show, and just the emotion. I think the biggest thing about this show was the emotion for me. Bill Bixby's phenomenal acting, and how he took this role so seriously. And there was just this undercurrent of sadness throughout the show, even though it was so fun to watch the Hulk outs and to watch, you know, Lou Ferrigno as the Hulk do his thing and kick ass. And, you know, it's dated for sure, but man, it's such an important part of my childhood. And I still watch it from time to time. Sometimes when I come home for lunch, I have an external hard drive that I plug into my my DVD player or my Blu-ray player. And I have all the episodes of The Incredible Hulk on there. I literally like ripped them all and like encoded them. So I have them. And so I just plug it in. And every now and then when I'll throw on an episode of The Hulk. You know, I still watch it to this day. I love the show so much. The 1976 King Kong. Another one. This came out in 1976. It came out the year after Jaws. And it was kind of the answer to that. Like they said, hey, Jaws was this massive hit, so let's try to repeat that. And this was Universal Studio. No, I think it was Paramount. Paramount did King Kong, and they tried to match what Universal did with Jaws. And King Kong was a hit. But for me, this movie, it was weird because King Kong himself scared the shit out of me. That first meeting with him and Dwan, you know, there's just a nice build up until he finally meets. Like they build this legend. Like there's this one scene where Jeff Bridges, he is on the boat. He sneaks on the boat because he wants to. He's curious about King Kong. Everybody else is there because they want to get rich. They want money, but he gets on the boat because he's curious about King Kong. And then there's one moment in the movie at the beginning when they're talking about it, and then he stands up and he gives this little speech about King Kong. And he's talking about like the wedding, like from thy wedding. I can't remember the exact quote, but he's talking about basically this monster that's just massive. And that scene, before you even see King Kong, you're automatically interested. You know, they build this legend before he's finally shown. You know, and it's just a guy walking around in an ape suit, but it feels so real, you know, or at least it did for me back in, I think the first time I probably saw this was on TV, maybe 79, something like that. Again, the end of the movie when he is on the Twin Towers and Dwan is there and she's just like begging the military to stop shooting at him. And boy, did it hit me hard. Like it is just, so it's one of those movies where it's extremely gut wrenching, you know, and it also is kind of scary, and the score is just very emotional. I'm trying to remember the guy who did the score. I think is it John Barry? If you ever get a chance, listen to the score to 76 King Kong on YouTube. it's just, there's just a real sense of like foreboding and dread in that score, and sadness. And last thing I'll say about King Kong is a scene when they got him on the boat and they're taking him to New York, and he's just miserable. He's sad. He's sitting there in the boat, and then Dwan, Jessica Lange, comes over to him over the top, and he starts just freaking out. And he like jumps, and then she falls into there, and you're just like so scared for her, but you're also kind of happy for him because that's all he wants. He's in love with her. He loves her, and she gets that, So she feels conflicted throughout the whole thing, and Jeff Bridges feels conflicted about what's going on, just because they don't like how they're treating this animal. So, yeah. I've always loved King Kong. I love Jaws, but King Kong is extremely important to me. Okay, next one. Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3. Part 3. Does that mean I prefer this one to the first one? Not necessarily. Not necessarily. But it's definitely a check mark in my life. This is when I think I really started getting into the franchise. This one came out in 1987. And I saw this in the theater, and I wonder if this might be one of the first rated R horror movies, slasher movies that I saw in the theater. I can't remember. I think it might have been. But I just remember that theater experience, man. Everybody was just freaking out. They were loving this movie. And the moment that really jumped out at me and that cemented Nightmare 3 as probably one of the greatest horror sequels in my mind ever made, Nancy gets pulled into the dream world, and it's really kind of that scene right there. And you got Kristen in there. Nancy gets pulled in, and it's kind of the meeting again of Freddy and Nancy. When Freddy sees her, and he goes, "You," and just a big chill went up my spine. And this movie was like kind of like what Terminator 2 is to Terminator. That doesn't necessarily mean Terminator 2 is better than Terminator, but it's so much bigger and more epic. And it's a slasher movie. When it's all said and done, Nightmare 3, it's pretty much a slasher movie. It is. But it just feels so big. It just from Freddy feels bigger. The characters feel bigger. Everybody's bringing their A game. Everything's firing on all cylinders in Nightmare 3. But for me, it's just a big moment because I saw this in the theater, and I just remember that audience's reaction back then, and it was really cool. Next one is going to be Porkies, of course. This has to do, I guess, with like adolescence, and I was way too young to watch this movie, but damn was I curious. I was so freaking curious about this. I wanted to, and it was one of those movies where I'm sneaking down the hallway, and my parents were watching it. I remember, and I'm just kind of like peeking out in the hallway, and if my mom saw me, she'd say, "Get back in your room," But I don't know if it was the case, but I felt like this movie was like the real nasty that you. It's like the farthest you can go as far as being nasty. At least that's what was in my mind when I saw this movie. It was like that forbidden fruit, in my mind, what I thought I was going to see in Porky's was probably more than porn. And this was when I was freaking, way before I started watching. Did I just say started watching porn? I've never watched porn. Let's just say I was really young at the time, okay? Way before I even thought about watching porno. So to me, Porky's was kind of like porno, but it was really funny. It was really, really, really funny. For years and years, I never realized that Bob Clark directed this. But when I think back now on what I really loved about Porky's, aside from the raunchy stuff, was the characters. It has really, really great freaking characters, like Pee-wee and Meat. I loved Meat in the movie, and how these eggs scene, and but it feels like that forbidden fruit. Oh, and of course the Lassie scene. Still to this day, that's one of the funniest scenes I've ever seen. If you don't know what the Lassie scene is, you got to watch Porkies for sure. It's this coach. Who played Lassie? I'm trying to remember her name. She was in Mannequin, and she's also in Sex and the City. That's going to drive me crazy now. Somebody will let me know. No, it's not Kate Capshaw. I can't. But this I think he's a coach or he's a teacher. He wants to hook up with her. And then the coach tells him, you want to hook up with Lassie? Kim Cattrall. Thank you very much, Phil. I had a big old crush on her, by the way. And the coach is like, you want to hook up with Lassie? And then he goes, oh. And he's like, what does that mean? What does that mean? And so then he like hooks up with her. And then, they're in the back. And this is in the gym, the basketball court. And all of a sudden, throughout the entire freaking school, you hear, oh. And he's trying to get her to be quiet. Okay. Oh, man. Porkies, yeah. What a great memory Porkies is. Okay. Next one. See, I told you, this list is surprising, right? You never know what's coming, okay? So, next one, here we go. It's not Psycho. It's not Psycho 2. It's Psycho 3. Now, I can tell you right now, I prefer Psycho 2 and Psycho 1 over Psycho 3, but I fucking love Psycho 3. I think it's highly underrated, but it's not on this list because I love it. It's on this list because of the memory of it. And what is the memory of Psycho 3 for me? It's the first and only movie I saw at the drive-in movie theater. 1986, I believe, when this came out. Drive-in movie theaters usually have a double feature. So I saw this with The Hills Have Eyes Part 2. The one where the dog has a dream. Or was it you see like the dog has a flashback or something like that? I don't remember Hills Have Eyes Part 2 at all. Technically, it could be on this list with this movie, but Psycho 3 is the one that really sticks out. I remember loving this movie when I saw it back then. My sister was on a date, and they were going to see this movie at the drive-in, and I wanted to go really bad. And we only had so much money, and also I wasn't, old enough because it was rated R. So what they did was they snuck me in the trunk of the car, and it worked. They put me in the trunk of the car, and then they went through and just kind of sitting there waiting. And next thing you know, the trunk opens up. They're in there. Okay, let's go get some popcorn. And it's just a really nice, fun memory. I'll never forget that night. And I think it's part of the reason why I'm like obsessed with drive-in movie theaters. Like one of my old videos on the channel back in 2015, I did a trip to a drive-in movie theater back in Valdosta, Georgia, where I used to live. And it's such a I'm always in search of drive-ins. I drove to like Atlanta. I think Georgia has more working drive-ins than any other state. I think I read that somewhere. Okay, but yeah, Jeff Fahey is really great in this movie. Yeah, hey, watch the guitar. This was a little sleazier too, but Anthony Hopkins directed this, and I love the music. I think Carter, what's his name? Carter Bofield did the music in this one. But the music in this movie, or at least the main theme, is different than the previous two movies, But it's really cool sounding. So, yeah. Anthony Perkins. Did I say something else? Did I say Hopkins? I meant Perkins, yeah. Anthony Perkins directed this, though. And he did a really good job. I love Psycho 3. Return of the Jedi. Return of the Jedi. Is Return of the Jedi my favorite Star Wars movie? No, not at all. It's probably not even... It's easily in my top 5, for sure. Maybe top... Is it top 3? Maybe not. I don't know. But it's a big memory for me. It's the first Star Wars movie I saw in the theater. I wanted to see Empire really bad. Otherwise, because Empire would have been on this list. But I remember I was in second grade when Empire came out. And I remember all the kids at school were talking about, did you go see Empire? It was so great. And I remember one of the kids... He was going, laugh it up, fuzzball. They were like throwing out lines, how kids do. And I was so jealous. I wanted to see Empire so bad. But my parents never took me to the theater. I wanted to see E.T. so bad because E.T. was massive back in the day. But my parents, they didn't, they weren't like movie theater people, so I only got to go to the movies. But this was like the concluding chapter in the Star Wars trilogy. And I remember I begged my parents to take me to it. And I think my dad's not a Star Wars guy at all. So I'm pretty sure he just dropped me and my sister off and then he just left. But I remember just having a ball watching this movie in the theater. Loving the Sarlacc pit sequence and all that. But really, that scene right there, the big showdown between Luke and the Emperor and Vader, to me, now, if I'm talking about favorite sequences in the Star Wars franchise, that's number one. That is definitely number one. But the reason Jedi isn't my number one movie is A, Empire is freaking amazing, and B, I don't like Ewoks. So and also not just the Ewoks, but that whole section in the woods, not really my favorite section, But man, boy, did they make up for it in this final act, Luke is on point in this movie. Luke is really great. So, and maybe that's why people get so mad about Last Jedi, because they wanted this Luke, We want this Luke so bad. Luke is just prime in Jedi. And I like Luke in Empire too, even though he's, in training. But yeah, so Return of the Jedi. Okay, next one is Rocky IV. Now, guys, keep in mind, this is part 1 of 2. I'm gonna tell you right now, I don't have Rocky on this list, but I'll go ahead and I'll give you a little teaser for the other list. Yeah, Rocky. The first Rocky is definitely on the other list, but I didn't want to put both Rocky movies on. But Rocky IV. Wow, man, and I've shared this story so many times, so I won't like. I guess I'll just give you the quick down and dirty. When I saw this in the theater, this is probably my all-time favorite theater experience. It really is. Like, nothing will ever top seeing Rocky IV in the theater. Watching that final fight. Man, that final fight is just amazing. Still to this day, it's so amazing. And Stallone has even stated, like recently, he said, this is the greatest boxing match ever put to film. And I can say that because I know the work that went into it. Stallone would write out a script for the fights in the Rocky movies separate from the actual script of the movies themselves. That's how seriously he took the final fights, and that's why they're so great and they stand out so much. Each punch is written down in the script. So Dolph Lundgren had to go home and he literally had to memorize every punch to the stomach, every punch to the face, every punch that he had to take. He had to memorize it all, and that's why the fight just really stands out. It's so good. It's so good. For me, my favorite. Well, let me tell you the memory of why this is on the list is because I saw this in the theater. I was on a date when I was 13 years old. Before I saw it, I remember walking by my local theater. My local theater back in Columbus, Mississippi, they only played 2 movies at a time. So I remember the first time I even heard about Rocky IV coming out, and I was a big Rocky fan, was seeing the poster. Seeing the poster, and I was like, oh shit! That poster is one of my all-time favorite movie posters. Stallone with the flag over him, and it just looks amazing. So. Stallone, man, this is a guy that took his job seriously. Look at the shape he got into for this movie. And like thinking back, the difference between Rocky 1 and 2 compared to 3 and 4. Losing so much. He got down to like 2% body fat. But I think his most ideal frame was Rocky 4. That's like, I remember when I was 13, I was like, man, if I could have any body, I would want that body. I didn't want Schwarzenegger's body. I thought Schwarzenegger was too big. I wanted Stallone's body in Rocky IV. I thought he had like the perfect physique, and he's fighting the ultimate machine in Rocky IV. So yeah, Rocky IV just such an important to me, and I still watch it constantly. Only theatrical. I can't watch the freaking director's cut anymore. I don't like it. It just leaves a sour taste in my mouth every time I watch it. But yeah, theatrical all the way. Okay, I think we got 2 left. Yeah, 2 left. And these are both extremely important. All right, here we go. Stand By Me. Now, this is a movie that I remember watching constantly when I was young. And the weird thing about Stand By Me for me was I remember back in the day when you would record movies and TV on VHS tape. I used to record shows from HBO all the time. I remember I recorded like Raw Deal, the Schwarzenegger movie. By the way, Raw Deal I think is highly underrated. But Stand By Me, I remember I started it too late. And I missed the first 5 minutes of the movie. And so I would watch that VHS tape like over and over and over and over again, but I never saw the first 5 minutes of the movie. I would always start when they're in the treehouse. That's where I started recording. So I never remembered what came before, But this movie for me just captures friendship better than any other movie I've ever seen. And I think we all can kind of relate to it. Just having a group of friends when you're a child, and those at that moment, those friendships, they feel so big and so genuine. And it's one of the few movies that really, really captures that. But one thing that sticks out about Stand By Me is more times than not, those friendships don't last. They're gone in the blink of an eye because of life. Your life changes, you move on. Like me, I joined the military, and I had 2 best friends back when I was around a little older than this age, and those 2 friends, and I'll even say their names, Chad and Rodney. Chad and Rodney were like my best friends ever. We went on vacations together. We hung out. That friend that you got on your bike and you went to his house or her house every day in the summer, and you just hung out. Like, to me, this is like a summer movie, and you would just hang out with them every day. And that's the way it was for me with Chad and Rodney. But when I joined the military, I rarely ever saw them again, And the last line in this movie is just so profound, talking about I'll never have this feeling again. You'll never have friends at least this close again, And you might have friends that are really, really close in your adult life. I'm sure most of you do. But there's something different about childhood friends, the innocence. And this is like that moment of friendship where the innocence kind of starts dying a little bit, breaking off. You start getting into like girls, in their case, they're young boys. And, just these little moments that like chopper sick balls. There you go, David. Yeah, just all these little moments that stick out. But for me, the thing with Stand By Me was the train track scene. I identified with that scene so much because I used to walk the train tracks every day when I was a kid, about their age, growing up. I lived near train tracks. And so that scene where they're running on the train track and crying their eyes out, that train track looked like it was bigger than it was, like massive. And I always kind of obsessed with that train track scene. The scene where they're in the swamp and then he gets the leeches on him. I don't know. There's just so many moments, like signature moments in this movie that really stand with me. But it's so emotional too. Like being vulnerable, and you have to have a friendship that is so strong that you can trust each other, and that's kind of the way this was. And these 4 friends, I would think that River Phoenix and the other kid, they had like the strongest friendship, and you could tell. And I think that's common. When you have 4 friends, rarely is it all 4 are equally as strong. There's always like 2 that are like there's ultra close, you know? So, yeah, Stand By Me is so freaking important. I love the movie to death. And it's one of those movies where I kind of didn't watch it for so many years. And then it just kind of, I started thinking about it again, So, what a beautiful movie, though. Stand By Me. Love this movie to death. I think Beth put this as her number one on her list, actually. But yeah, and last one for this list, and again, this isn't number one, it's just one of the movies, okay? So number one is Teen Wolf. Teen Wolf's another one of those movies I used to watch every day, like especially when I would get out of school for some reason. I'd want to watch it all the time. But I think this movie's important to me because I feel like let me ask you guys this. Is there a movie character that you feel like you are the most like? Give me a movie character you feel like encompasses your specific traits. Not all of them, but quite a few of them, especially personality-wise. I was pretty much like Scott Howard. I wasn't like the popular kid. And, he's this guy who he feels like he's nobody. He's on the basketball team. But then he becomes a werewolf, because his family is from a line of werewolves. And it doesn't happen until a certain age. But when he becomes the werewolf, then all of a sudden he starts getting all this attention. He finds that he has almost like this superpower of being able to play basketball really good, He's very strong. So, and there is a line in this movie, with great power comes great responsibility. His father literally says that to him. And so I think that's what I like about this, is taking someone that's not popular at all and giving him all this power. And how is he going to react? And I think Scott Howard has a great arc in this movie. I think there's a lesson learned. And I think what's beautiful about the movie is by the time he gets to the end of it, he doesn't want to be the wolf anymore. He wants to kind of he wants to earn it on his own, because in a way the wolf is kind of like a shortcut, I guess a cheat code, if in gamer speak. And he realizes that maybe that's not the best thing. Maybe I'll be respected more if I do it on my own. And again, it's just another one of those movies that I love the characters in it. Every one of them. I love the scenes where they're going to try to get the beer. When he's surfing on the van, Surfing USA. This movie just screams 80s. And I was Team Boof all the way. I always loved Boof, and I wanted Scott and Boof to get together. It's one of those situations where the girl that is meant for you is literally right there in front of you, and you don't see it. He's so dead set on the dream girl, the sexy girl, the sex pot, in that picture there. But by the end of the movie, he realizes that that's just superficial. That's not important. What's important is this person that gets you, that's a big part of your life, that encourages you, that uplifts you. That's what Boof was. She always was in Scott's corner. And she was there to check him when he started buying into his own bullshit, So I loved Boof. So yeah, Teen Wolf. I freaking love Teen Wolf to death. So that is my first list. I have 10 more that I will share with you on the next DD Live. But man, I gotta thank the freaking the RAD 9 podcast, or whatever they're called. But this was such a great idea, and I had to jump on it. I had to, because I wanted to talk about me. That's pretty much what the 9 RAD movies that made me tag is. It's you. So I would ask you guys to put together your own list. As a matter of fact, before we go, each and every one of you, give me 3 movies right now that are so you, that are just like big checkpoints in your life that mean so much. I want to see some of your movies right now, okay? I'm going to take a drink. I'm going to wait. Give me 3 movies, all right? 3 movies. Galford's Dog. Wild Things was the most important movie in my development. Well, for me, it was Maybe Last American Virgin. House Party. Original Halloween 2, Twins, and Super 8. Those are great ones. RoboCop, Terminator, and The Crow. Yeah. Now, The Crow happens to be my number 2 all-time favorite film, behind Halloween. Blazing Asian says Batman 89, Fight Club, and Nightmare on Elm Street. JG Michael says Gremlins 2. That's an interesting choice. Beetlejuice and Halloween 5. Yeah. Halloween 5 is a good one, a good memory. Because I just remember after Halloween 4, I was dying to know, oh God, well, how are they going to follow this up? And so I couldn't wait to go see Halloween 5. Like I was freaking chomping at the bit. Jason says Aliens, Superman, Apocalypse Now. Now, you might see a Superman movie on my next list, okay? Lethal Weapon 2, Commando, and Shawshank Redemption. You might see a couple of those on my next list, too. Commando, man. Oh, my God. You know what? I'll say this right now. I forgot to put Commando on that list, but damn. I just have such great freaking memories of Commando. That's an action movie. My favorite scene in Commando, among many great scenes, you know, please don't disturb my friend. He's dead tired. When he's in the house, they take his daughter, and then the guy's sitting there. You know, he thinks he's holding the cards, and he says, "You want to get your daughter back? You're gonna cooperate, right?" And he goes, "Wrong," and he just fucking blows him away. That's not what's supposed to happen. Usually they're like, "Okay, I'm gonna abide, and you tell me what I need to do." Yeah. So yeah, fun list, right, guys? Fun list. I can't wait to do the next one. But anyway, we did it. What's up, guys? You are at the end of the DD Live clip. What I do is I like to clip these out if I think the topic is important or something that's newsworthy. So thank you for watching. And if you want to watch more, you can go over here. You can go over here. Click on one of those. And hopefully I can do this for 20 seconds, which I think I did. Okay, so yeah, thanks for watching, guys.